Okay. All right, so the goal here is to review the spinal cord and all the different parts of the spinal cord and how they connect with the rest of the nervous system. So we have a torso model, and we're looking at a posterior view of the torso model. We're looking at the back. And running down the back, right down the middle, mid-sagittal, is this guy. What is this What is this thing right here? What is that?
Is that our gray matter that we're talking about?
That's actually the spinal cord. Okay, that's the spinal cord itself. And the spinal cord, it's obviously a very important nervous system structure, so we want to protect it. And how do we protect that? What surrounds the spinal cord? The vertebral column, the vertebrae surround the spinal cord. And this is a vertebrae here, and they've taken out, the rest of them. They have a little bit here, but they've taken out the posterior portion so we can see the spinal cord within it. And we haven't gone through the bones yet, but we have what are called cervical vertebrae. We have 12 thoracic vertebrae, and then we have 5 lumbar vertebrae, and then below that we have the sacrum, and then the tailbone, the coccyx. Now each vertebra has a hole in the middle. This is the body. This is what we call the spinous process. This is the back portion, and you can palpate these when you run your finger down your back. This is what you're feeling, are these spinous processes. But every vertebra has a hole in the middle of it, and that hole is called the vertebral foramen. And what happens is that when you stack these vertebrae on top of each other, those vertebral foramen line up, and they form what's called the vertebral canal. And that's where the spinal cord runs through, is through the vertebral canal. So that's a lot of protection for the spinal cord. You have these big bodies in front, then you have these processes coming out of it, so you have nice bony protection for that. So yeah, this is the spinal cord that runs down the vertebral canal. And let's just take a look up here. Did I bring that? I did bring this in. Here's the skull. And if you look at an inferior view of the skull, you have this large hole right at the bottom. That's called the foramen magnum. Foramen means hole, magnum means large. That's a large hole. And guess what passes through that? The spinal cord passes through there. And once that spinal cord passes through the foramen magnum, it's no longer the spinal cord. What does it become? It becomes, more specifically, what is it? What part of the brain?
Brainstem?
The brainstem. Exactly. So here we have this mid-sagittal head model, and you can see this gap in the skull. That's the foramen magnum. And so the spinal cord runs up through the vertebral canal, and once it passes through that foramen magnum, it becomes the brainstem. And the first part of the brainstem it becomes is the medulla oblongata. Good. Okay. So what does the spinal cord do? It receives information.
And then doesn't send information out.
It receives information and it sends information out. What type of information does the spinal cord receive? Sensory information. What kind of information does the spinal cord send out?
Motor.
Motor information. Good. And that sensory and motor information that's coming to and from the spinal cord